Welcome to Chat, Communications, Happenings, and Trends, with your host, Amanda Cumming, and producer, Janet Louise Meyer. Thank you for listening.
So an article just came out by the LA Times that summarized a report concerning anti-poverty programs in the United States. And what the report had found was that these anti-poverty programs were actually quite effective, even though that they have been vilified over time since pretty much at least the Reagan administration. And so basically what this report says is that 5 programs in particular actually helped reduce the poverty rate. And those 5 programs included Social Security, welfare program, housing assistance, food stamps, also known as SNAP, and also the supplemental security income. And that Social Security particularly helped reduce the poverty among elderly personnel by at least 75%. And so basically what they are arguing in this particular report is that previous measures that had been shown that I guess the Republican Party particularly utilizes to help demonize these programs and try to cut these programs, those previous measures had been ineffective or outdated. So with statistics, you can build better models to help represent what's actually going on with the data and what's going on in the real world. And they hadn't updated these models for quite some time. And so basically that's kind of where we're at is actually questioning if those previous models were actually effective in measuring. And so when you included all of these assistance programs, SNAP, welfare, and things like that, it was found to actually help reduce the poverty rate. Now, another thing that also helped at least the working poor was the tax credit, right? I don't remember what it's called right now. What is it called?
Income.
The
Earned income.
Thank you. The earned income tax credit actually helped the working poor. And so actually 6 programs did help, alleviate poverty among Americans, but 5 programs particularly helped reduce that rate. Again, I don't know if I said this, but these anti-poverty programs, especially Social Security, it has been estimated that 25 million Americans would be living in poverty right now had it not been for Social Security income, which is substantial. And it is nothing to scoff at. So I'm not really sure it can be justified at this point in time to try to cut these programs or try to, privatize them to make them more efficient and better when they seem to be quite effective and actually working in the intended way in which they had been planned. I think what we need to do is actually strengthen them. Maybe we need to readjust what we consider poverty in the United States. One thing that hasn't been adjusted for a decent amount of time is the fact that housing costs have increased, food costs have increased, but again, people's working pay have not increased, have not kept up with inflation, to say the least. If you track over time, you notice that since the 1980s, Americans generally have not received what is it called? Oh my goodness, my words today. A raise, have not received a pay raise, basically, not since the 80s. So you can definitely see that we have an issue in the United States. So we need to maybe not only increase wages and make sure that if you're working 40 hours a week, at least if you're working 40 hours a week, you make a living wage, but also readjust what we define as poverty, because poverty right now is insanely poor. It's like if you have a family of 4, you have to be making pretty much $12,000 a year to be considered at the poverty line, which $12,000 a year, yes, that's insanely poor, but that is really poor in the United States. Again, only about 50% of Americans make $30,000 or less on their paycheck, so per year. So we really need to try to figure out what poverty or redefine poverty at this point, so we can at least strengthen these programs that obviously have been shown to be effective. So Janet, I just want to get what your take on this. I think you have firsthand knowledge in this situation at any rate.
With Social Security, I mean, for what I make, what I get in Social Security, it's not a lot. I mean, I still would not be able to afford to live on my own in Massachusetts on it. But yeah, I mean, it helps me immensely because, I mean, with that, I also got Medicare. So, I mean, I don't really have to pay too much for health stuff. So, I mean, without that, I'd be lost because my whole life savings from working, I literally worked, I'm not even kidding you, for 30 years, you know, and my life savings was depleted because of my medical costs. So, I mean, without it, you know, I mean, I know that my parents would take care of me, but I mean, not everyone has that opportunity, and that's why we need these programs. But you know, there's still some things that could be better on them, but I mean, I can't even imagine where we would be without just even like Social Security without that. But the people that are working 40 hours a week and still having to get like SNAP and stuff like that is ridiculous. Like that is giving corporations that is giving corporations and companies the money, really. And so that needs to end. If you work a 40-hour, if you are capable and you work a 40-hour a week job, you should be making a living wage and not have to be on any of these benefit programs, because if you are working 40 or more hours and you still needing these benefits to cover you and your family, then there's something wrong there. Like the companies are ending up making money off this in all reality, if you think about it. The other thing is, my father is 80 years old. He still works part-time, but you know, he's 80 years old. He's getting his Social Security checks, and you know, my mother worked as a teacher, and he gets a lot more than me, and he's like, I don't get this. Like, I don't need this. Like someone like you that had to, you know, stop work earlier, and don't, you know, I don't own a home at this point because I lost it because of my health bills, and all that. Like, he owns his home right out, and he gets more money because he put in the extra time. So there has to be some sort of what he was saying, that he'd rather see it kind of, you know, so that everybody was getting enough to live on. Like, and even he is kind of like that, and he has, you know, he's been independent, but he has some libertarian kind of views on certain things about, you know, taxes every once in a while. But I mean, he's, you know, I mean, even he can see how that, you know, there's certain things that really need to be fixed, but going backwards and trying to like taking it away, that would just be insane.
Well, they do it under the guise of reform. And so, and also I just wanted to mention that, yeah, what you were mentioning earlier about the corporate welfare, where they are the ones that get to basically not pay their employees enough money to survive. And so the government has to come in and take care of those employees. That is corporate welfare. It's plain and simple what that is. And another thing that I thought was interesting was in the article, it basically, or in something that I was reading, I don't know if it was in this specific article, about Reagan basically quoting or basically saying something to the effect of, well, there has been a war against poverty and poverty has won in regard to these anti-poverty programs, which, one, that was not true. And two, I would argue that it's been the exact opposite, that there has been a war against the poor. more so than anything, because you're talking about, the GOP is talking about reforming all these programs, cutting Social Security. I'm sorry, people have paid into these programs, and then you're talking about cutting them. So they lose that money that they've paid into their entire lives if you cut the programs. People need these types of assistance because that is the type of society we have decided to build. We have decided to be under a capitalist society, which does need an underclass. And so if we want to assure that our underclass is still working and taken care of, then we need these type of assistance programs. We don't need them to be cut. It's just outrageous to me that people would think that this is a good idea. They're insanely popular too. Something like Social Security has popularity rate of like 75%. And so does Medicare and Medicaid. They're very highly popular and loved by the people that utilize these programs, and for good reason. So I always get very angry when we talk about cutting these programs because it doesn't make much sense to do so. You're talking about then basically potentially putting 25 million Americans, if not more, back into poverty if these programs were cut. So, that's just one program. If one program alone was cut, and that's Social Security. So it just makes no sense whatsoever to do that. So that's kind of where I stand on this. We got to have proper measures, obviously, to help measure what we need as far as so that we can understand what's working, what's effective, and what's not. But we can't we shouldn't twist the data to meet our ends. We should allow the data to tell us, to guide us, so that we have a better understanding of what's happening.
I mean, and a lot of these programs they were put in place because they were put in place because they wanted they were actually supposed to be made better over the years. A lot of them were put in place, but then the whole intention was to keep helping more and more and to move with the economy and not just get stagnant. And obviously I can't even think of where people would I know so many people that are now on not either elderly or I know a lot of disabled only because of the work I did before, but I mean I don't even know where they would be. I really don't know where they would be, and cutting these programs would just be it would be just as bad as the freaking guy in Oklahoma that wants to like just kill off disabled people anyway. So hey, like just ridiculousness. I mean, it's really sad that like you take my instance. I put in 30 years of working, 30 years. That's almost a full time. There's people that work about 30 to 50 years of their life. I wasn't a slacker. Most of the times I was working more than one job. I made okay money. I had all that stuff, but still with the health benefits, I lost it all. And would I deserve to just live on the street because of that? I mean, is that what I deserve? I don't think so. I don't think anyone deserves that. I don't think anyone deserves to live on the street. So I don't know. It's just any talk of that or any talk of the whole like welfare queen thing is just ridiculous because they have all studies like it's anywhere from less than 1% to 2% is the only like the highest I've ever seen that they'll claim that there's any bit of someone that's on a system that shouldn't be on it or something like that. And
one thing that irritates me about that side of the discussion was this whole like welfare queen. Let's call it for what it is. It's a fucking myth. The myth of the welfare queen, because I would like you to point out where this instance has occurred. And it's always like, well, they, quote unquote, they are taking advantage of the system. Okay, who's they? I always have to ask, somebody that's gung ho about cutting these programs, like, do you know, so if it is as bad as you say it is, you should know somebody personally who is taking advantage of this system. Someone you know. Who is it that you know? And if you are a good citizen, you should report them.
Exactly.
So either you are not doing your job and you are cognizant and aware of criminal activity occurring and you are not reporting it, which makes you party to their criminal activity, in my opinion, or you're lying. You don't know anybody personally. It isn't as bad as you're saying it is, because if millions of Americans are taking advantage of this, then there is somebody you know personally. And I know a decent amount of people that are on welfare or disability or WIC or the food stamps program, and 0% of them whom I know personally are taking advantage of the system. In fact, a lot of it, like for instance, I had a discussion with somebody who was on WIC yesterday, who I personally know. And she told me, she's like, I don't even use all this stuff. I don't buy all the stuff that I am allowed to buy because my family isn't large enough. And so I just won't buy all of it. Instead of 2 gallons of milk, I'll just get 1 gallon because that's all I drink. And so I stay within my needs. So tell me, who is that one person that you know personally that is taking advantage of the system? I'll wait.
Well, even me, I can get food stamps. I don't. I don't because I live at my parents, and so I mean, I have enough money to buy the food. So I mean, I could, but I don't need it. So I'm not doing it. And I know a lot of people like that too. And I understand, like, oh, if you can get food stamps, just get the food stamps in case you need them, blah blah blah. But I mean, it's I don't know. Like, I really don't know people, and in all reality, you don't get a lot of money. Like, so, like, you're not becoming rich off of, say you're on Social Security and you don't really need to be, because you're not disabled or something or whatever. And that's a whole nother thing, because there's invisible illness and stuff like that, and that's a whole nother ball of wax to sit there and point at people saying they shouldn't be on disability. But the even so, like, if you're disabled and you may be able to work, there's a reason why you got disability. It's not easy to get disability. You don't get it took me over 2 years of me not getting any other income. In those 2 years, I couldn't make a dime, and I got Social Security. I had to live off of my life savings, but there's people that don't have that have to go on disability, and they have to live 2 years. So that's where they might have to pick up, like, getting food stamps or housing assistance and all this other stuff. But still, it's like, I don't know anyone that's really like trying to screw over the system, because you're not going to get rich on it. And with the amount of work and what you have to do to stay on these things, it's not worth it. It's not there. Like, it's not even feasible to do it.
Well, here's what I'm doing. I'm on two statements here. One is, I'm willing to allow the small percentage to slip through the cracks, as long as it helps the majority that need it. I think that is a hit that we as a society should be willing to take, because yes, there are going to be some cheaters. That happens all the time. There are people at work that are cheating. There are people there are people that drive that are cheating. And by cheating, I mean they're not like abiding by the laws and rules of your workplace or of the state or government and things like that. That's what I mean by cheating. My second point is that I am willing to allow right, handouts, as long as it assures that people are not dead on the streets. because this is really a life or death situation. And it's like, how psychopathic do we want our society to be? Do we want to ensure that we turn our backs on the most needy Americans in society, or do we want to ensure that we help them? And I, again, am willing to help them and to provide these assistance programs and to pay taxes into them, as long as they're not dead or dying or in poverty, because nobody needs that. And by need, that is not, I want a better society. I want a society that wants to help each other. Otherwise, there's no point of society. We should all be individualists and hermits. You know, we shouldn't abide by anything. There's no point if we can't at least lend a hand to our fellow human being, somebody that shares the society with us. And that's kind of my stance.
You just listened to another episode of Chat, Communications, Happenings, and Trends. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Also, head on over to our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/ActifyChat and help us bring more content to you by supporting us. Thank you, and keep fighting the good fight, my friends.